My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 47 years old, a former financial auditor, and I live in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in St. Louis. My life is orderly, predictable, and calm, just the way I like it. It's a life I built myself, funded by a career spent untangling the complicated finances of corporations, and secured by the $1.2 million inheritance my grandfather, Henry Miller, left me. He believed in structure, in balanced ledgers, and in the simple, brutal honesty of numbers. So do I. That's why, on a Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang unexpectedly, a small knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I wasn't expecting anyone. My parents and my younger brother, Greg, never just dropped by. Their visits were always announced, usually because they needed something. I opened the door, and there they were. The unholy trinity. My mother, Eleanor, stood slightly behind my father, Arthur, clutching her purse like a shield. My father stood ramrod straight, his expression already set to disappointed but determined. And then there was Greg. 45 years old and still dressing like he was closing a deal on Wall Street, in a suit that looked just a little too expensive for his actual income. He flashed a grin that was all teeth and no warmth, the kind of shark-like smile a salesman gives you right before he takes you for everything you're worth. He was a real estate developer, a title he used to cover a long and impressive history of developing nothing but debt and failed projects. Sarah. Greg boomed, stepping past me into the foyer. Good to see you. It's a surprise, I said, closing the door behind them. Everything okay? Everything's better than okay, sis, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. My father and mother filed into the living room and sat on my couch, looking perfectly out of place in my meticulously organized space. This was an ambush. I could feel it in my bones. Greg didn't waste any time. He pulled a glossy brochure from his briefcase and spread it across my coffee table with a flourish. The cover read, in bold, gold letters, Midwest Real Estate Trust. It looked slick, professional, and utterly fake. This is it, Sarah, he announced, his voice smooth as silk. The opportunity of a lifetime. The Midwest Real Estate Trust. We're getting in on the ground floor. Guaranteed 20% return, year over year. He paused for dramatic effect, then looked me dead in the eye. I just need you to put your $1.2 million in. My blood ran cold. As an auditor, my mind is trained to see red flags, and this brochure was a forest of them. Vague terminology. Unsubstantiated claims. Charts with soaring profits and no source data. It screamed scam. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the embossed logo. Okay, I began, keeping my voice even. Who's the fund manager? Greg waved a dismissive hand. A guy I know. Top of his field. What's his name? What's the fund's SEC registration number? Where are the underlying properties located? Can I see the prospectus? The questions came out of me like machine gun fire, a professional reflex. Greg's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Whoa, slow down with the technical stuff, Sarah. This is a family thing. We're all in this together. That's when my father leaned forward, his hands clasped together. Sarah, don't complicate this. Your brother has found a wonderful opportunity for this family to build real wealth. My mother chimed in, her voice soft and pleading. We're just worried about you, dear. That's such a large amount of money for you to manage all on your own. I turned to look at her, then glanced at the framed CPA license hanging on my wall. The piece of paper I'd spent years of my life earning. I think I know how to manage it, Mom. I looked back at the three of them, a united front on my couch, their faces a mixture of greed and feigned concern. They saw my inheritance not as my security, but as their lottery ticket. I put the brochure down. The answer is no. The air in the room instantly turned to ice. Greg's face went from charming salesman to petulant child in a heartbeat. My father's jaw tightened, and my mother began nervously twisting the strap of her purse. What do you mean, no? Greg snapped. I mean no. I'm not investing my inheritance in an unregistered fund with no documentation. It's not your inheritance, it's family money, my father interjected, his voice rising. Grandpa Henry would want us to use it to better the whole family. Grandpa Henry, I said, my voice dangerously quiet, would have taken one look at this brochure and used it for kindling. Greg muttered something under his breath about me being selfish. My father stood up. You will regret turning your back on this family, Sarah. And with that, they were gone, leaving a trail of furious silence in their wake. I sank into my armchair, the room feeling unnervously large and empty. My gaze drifted to the old black and white photograph on the mantelpiece. It was my grandfather, Henry, standing proudly in front of his small accounting firm downtown. He was a man built of numbers and integrity. He's the one who taught me how to read a balance sheet before I could properly ride a bike. He'd let me sit in his big leather chair, explaining debits and credits, his voice rumbling with a passion that I'd inherited. Sarah, he used to say, tapping a long column of figures, the numbers don't lie. People do. His last words to me, in the sterile quiet of the hospital room, echoed in my memory. He'd gripped my hand, his knuckles frail but his grip surprisingly strong. Don't let them take what you've earned. And never, ever let Greg touch a dime of it. Promise me. I had promised. And now they were trying to make me break that promise. But why were they so desperate? This wasn't just about getting rich. Greg was hiding something. An auditor's instinct is a powerful thing. It's a nagging feeling that a number is out of place, that a story doesn't add up. Their story didn't add up. I opened my laptop. As an auditor, I know where to look for the things people try to hide. I bypassed the glossy, fake world of Greg's brochure and went straight to the public records, the Missouri Secretary of State business filings, the civil court dockets for St. Louis County. First, I searched for the Midwest Real Estate Trust. Nothing. Not a single registration, not a trace of its existence. Just as I suspected. Then, I searched for Greg's name. And the screen began to fill up. A string of dissolved LLCs. A handful of lawsuits from angry investors. And then I found it. The smoking gun. A judgment from a private lender, not a bank, for a foreclosure on a commercial property. The amount owed was $1.3 million. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't trying to build wealth. He was trying to plug a hole in a sinking ship. A $1.3 million hole. And my $1.2 million was the perfect-sized patch. This wasn't an investment opportunity. It was an act of sheer, bone-deep desperation. And he was using our parents to execute it. The first thing I did was call Ben Carter. Ben had been my grandfather's lawyer for 30 years, a sharp, no-nonsense man who had seen every trick in the book. He'd helped me execute Henry's will, and I trusted him implicitly. Ben, it's Sarah Miller, I said when he answered. I think Greg's at it again. I explained the whole sordid affair, the surprise visit, the glossy brochure, the absurd claims of guaranteed returns. I told him about the foreclosure judgment I'd uncovered. Ben listened patiently, the silence on his end of the line punctuated only by the scratching of a pen. It's worse than you think, Sarah, he said when I finished. His tone was grim. Let me make a few calls. Don't talk to them. Don't agree to anything. Just sit tight. 2 days later, Ben called back. The news was chilling. There is no fund, he stated flatly. The account number on the documents you described Greg having. It traces back to a shell corporation in Delaware. And the name on the account belongs to a real estate broker out of Columbus who lost his license 5 years ago for forging signatures on mortgage applications. A cold dread washed over me. This was more organized than I'd thought. This wasn't just a clumsy attempt to get money, it was a premeditated, criminal conspiracy. And it gets worse, Ben continued, his voice heavy. You were right about the debt. The private lenders he owes money to. Sarah, these aren't nice people. They're the kind of guys who send people to the hospital to collect. The judgment gives him 30 days to pay up before they seize everything. He's running out of time. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID flashed, Greg. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ben, he's calling me right now. Answer it, Ben said immediately. Put it on speaker if you can, and if you have a way to record it, do it. Let him talk. I took a deep breath, tapped the screen, and switched on my phone's voice memo app, setting it on the table. Hello, Greg. Sarah. Finally, he said, his voice strained and tight. He was trying for casual, but the desperation was bleeding through. Have you had a chance to reconsider? We really need to get this moving. I'm still thinking about it, I lied, keeping my tone neutral. It's a big decision. There's nothing to think about, he snapped, his frustration boiling over. I'm in trouble here, okay? I need this. You have to decide. What kind of trouble, Greg? I pressed, my voice calm and steady. There was a pause. It's a liquidity issue. A timing thing. Just sign the papers. Stop ruining this for the family. He hung up. I stared at my phone, the recording saved. He hadn't confessed to the whole scheme, but his panic, his raw, undisguised desperation, it was all there. It was my first concrete piece of evidence. Armed with the court records and Ben's information, I decided I had to confront my parents. There was a small, naive part of me that still hoped they were just misguided, that they were victims of Greg's lies, too. That hope was about to be extinguished. I drove to their house, the same small brick home I grew up in. I found them in the kitchen, my father reading the paper and my mother peeling potatoes at the sink. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I laid the printouts of the court dockets on the kitchen table. The foreclosure, the lawsuits, the string of failed businesses. Look at this, I said, my voice shaking slightly. This is what you're trying to get me to invest in. He's a con artist. He's lying to both of you. He's going to lose every penny. My father didn't even glance at the papers. He slowly folded his newspaper, set it aside, and looked at me with cold, hard eyes. He'd always been like this. When Greg crashed his first car, Dad bought him a new one. When I won an academic scholarship to college, he'd asked why I wasn't getting a part-time job, too. Greg was their project, their golden boy who could do no wrong. I was just the reliable, self-sufficient daughter who was expected to take care of herself. So what? My father said, his voice dripping with disdain. So he owes some money. That's what family is for. To help each other out. You're sitting on $1.2 million that you did nothing to earn. The words hit me like a physical blow. Nothing to earn. I had spent every weekend of my teenage years helping grandfather Henry with his clients' books. I had earned his trust, his respect. My mother turned from the sink, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Sarah, honey, please, she whispered, her voice cracking. Think of the family's reputation. If word of this gets out, just give him the money. It's for the best. You're smart, you can earn more. The room spun. I looked from my father's stony face to my mother's pleading, tear-filled eyes. And I finally understood. They weren't being fooled. They knew. Maybe not all the details, but they knew Greg was in trouble, and they didn't care that the solution was to steal from me. They were active participants. They were willing to sacrifice their daughter to save their son. I stood there for a long moment, the papers on the table a testament to a truth I could no longer ignore. My family was broken. The people who were supposed to protect me were the very ones holding the knife to my back. I walked out without another word, got in my car, and drove home, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. The fight wasn't just with Greg anymore. It was with all of them. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. Every comment helps the video reach more people. Thank you so much for your support. Back in the safety of my own home, a cold, clear resolve settled over me. The grief was still there, a raw wound in my chest, but it was now overlaid with the sharp, methodical focus of an auditor about to expose fraud. They had made their choice. Now, I would make mine. I picked up my phone and called Greg. Before I hit dial, I started a new voice recording. I took a few deep breaths, trying to inject a tremor of defeat into my voice. "Greg," I said, letting out a shaky sigh when he answered. "You win." I spoke to Mom and Dad. "You're right. It's for the family." The relief in his voice was palpable, a wave of triumphant glee washing over the line. "I knew you'd see reason, Sarah. I told you. See? We just had to talk it out. Mom, Dad, and I will head over right now with the paperwork. We'll get this done today." "Okay," I whispered, and hung up. I had him. The confirmation that he was bringing our parents and the documents was now on tape. My next call was a text to Ben Carter. "They're on their way. The fake paperwork is coming with them." His reply was instant. "Be smart. Be safe. Have 911 pre-dialed. Your phone is your best witness now." I did exactly that. I took out my phone, placed it in the breast pocket of my button-down shirt, with the camera lens and microphone peeking out just enough. I hit record. The house was quiet, the only sound the frantic thumping of my own heart. This was it. The final act. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find the three of them standing on my porch, a mirror image of their first visit, but the atmosphere was entirely different. Greg's shark smile was back, wider and more predatory than ever. He was radiating smug victory. My father looked vindicated, a stern patriarch whose will had finally been done. Only my mother looked uneasy, her face pale and her eyes darting nervously around, refusing to meet mine. "Ready to make it official," Greg said, striding past me and tossing a thick manila folder onto my dining room table. I closed the door and walked slowly to the table, every movement deliberate. "Let's see what I'm signing." Greg pulled out a stack of papers and a pen. "Standard investment forms. Sign here, here, and initial here." I picked up the first page. It was a wire transfer authorization. The next was a contract for the non-existent Midwest Real Estate Trust. But then I got to the third document, and the blood drained from my face. It was a durable power of attorney. A document that would give Greg complete and total control over all my assets, present and future. They weren't just trying to take the inheritance. They were trying to take everything. I kept flipping, my face an emotionless mask. And then, at the very back of the pile, I found it. It was a signature page for a transfer of assets from my grandfather's brokerage account. An account I had inherited intact. And it was already signed. With my name. I looked at the signature. It was a decent forgery, but not perfect. A little too neat, a little too precise. The work of someone who had practiced, but who didn't have the natural flow of my hand. I held up the page, my fingers steady. "Greg," I said, my voice as cold and sharp as broken glass. "This looks like my signature. But I don't remember signing it." The triumphant energy in the room evaporated. A thick, heavy silence fell. Greg's smug expression dissolved into a mask of pure panic. His eyes darted from the forged document in my hand to my face, searching for a way out. "That must be a clerical error," he stammered, his voice suddenly a few octaves higher. "Just a mix-up. Just sign the other forms and we'll sort that one out." "No," I said, placing the paper back on the table. "I don't think we will." My father stepped forward, his face darkening with anger. "Stop being so stubborn, Sarah. You're doing the right thing for this family. Now sign the papers." I pushed my chair back and stood up, the movement scraping loudly in the silent room. "No. I am not signing forged documents. I am not going to stand here and let you steal my grandfather's legacy. All of you need to get out of my house. Now." The final thread of Greg's composure snapped. He lunged toward the table, his face twisted in a snarl of rage. "You don't get it, do you? I need that money. You're going to give it to me." My father, Arthur, pointed a trembling finger at my face. "We are not going anywhere. If you're not going to be a part of this family, then you don't deserve this house that family money paid for." A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips. "This house was paid for by my money. Grandfather Henry's money. You have no claim on it." That's when Greg completely lost control. He slammed his fist on the table, making the papers jump. "Fine. Have it your way. You want to be alone. You'll have nothing. We'll see you kicked out of here. Go live on the streets," he screamed, his voice cracking with fury. "Let's see who gives a damn about you then." That was it. The final, unforgivable line had been crossed. The love I once had for them curdled into something cold and hard. My hand was shaking, but my purpose was clear. I pulled my phone from my pocket. They probably thought I was calling Ben. I wasn't. I swiped the screen, my thumb hitting the green phone icon, then the numbers 911. And then I hit the speakerphone button. The calm, professional voice of the emergency operator filled the tense silence of the room. 911, what is your emergency?" Every head snapped toward the phone in my hand. Their faces were a portrait of disbelief and horror. I held the phone up, my voice loud, clear, and steady. "My name is Sarah Miller. My brother, Greg Miller, and my parents, Arthur and Eleanor Miller, are in my home. They are attempting to coerce me into signing fraudulent and forged financial documents to steal my inheritance of $1.2 million. What the hell are you doing?" Greg shrieked, lunging for me. I sidestepped him, holding the phone out of his reach. My mother crumpled to the floor, her wails echoing off the walls. "No, Sarah, no, please don't do this." My father's face was a mottled shade of purple. "Hang up that phone. You hang up that phone right now. You are destroying this family." The operator's voice cut through the chaos, a beacon of calm. "Ma'am, I've dispatched officers to your address. They are on their way. Please stay on the line." I kept the phone on, the speaker amplifying the symphony of their meltdown. Their threats, their panicked denials, their desperate, incriminating pleas. My phone, my silent witness, was capturing it all. The family I had known was dying right in front of me, and I was the one holding the shovel. It wasn't 30 minutes. It was less than 5. 2 police officers, a man and a woman named Dunn and Chen, appeared at my door. The chaos inside my living room immediately fell silent. I calmly handed Officer Dunn the folder of documents and my phone. "The recording of the last 10 minutes is on here," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Along with recordings of prior phone calls." He threatened me, and they admitted to the plan. Officer Dunn picked up the forged signature page, his eyes scanning it expertly. He looked at my driver's license, then back at the page. "This is a clear forgery," he said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. He turned to Greg, who was sweating profusely, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap and ill-fitting. Officer Dunn pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "Greg Miller, you are under arrest for attempted fraud and forgery." My father tried to intervene, blustering about this being a private family matter, but Officer Chen cut him off. "Sir, forgery is a felony. It stopped being a private matter when this 911 call was made." 3 months later, I stood on a witness stand in a cold, imposing courtroom. I was no longer the frightened daughter, I was the star witness for the prosecution. The district attorney, a sharp woman named Reynolds, played the 911 call for the jury. The entire courtroom listened in stunned silence to Greg's scream of, "Go live on the streets," followed by my mother's sobs and my father's furious demands. It was damning. Ben Carter's evidence of Greg's past scams and mountain of debt sealed the deal. The verdicts came swiftly. Greg was found guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in state prison. He just slumped in his chair, a broken man. My mother, Eleanor, had cooperated with the police. Her defense was that she was manipulated by her son. The judge showed some leniency. She received 3 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service. From the stand, she looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Sarah." I just nodded. I felt nothing. My father, Arthur, remained defiant to the end. He claimed he was only trying to protect his family. The judge was not impressed. "Your protection looks a lot like theft, Mr. Miller." He was convicted of conspiracy and fined $75,000. As he was led out of the courtroom, he shot me a look of pure, undiluted hatred. In his mind, this was all my fault. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright sunlight. I had won. Justice had been served. But it felt like I had just attended a funeral for my entire life. I drove home, went inside, and systematically blocked their numbers from my phone. I was done. A week later, my cousin, Clara Hayes, called from Kansas City. She was my mother's sister's daughter, someone who had always existed on the periphery of my life. "Sarah, I heard what happened," she said, her voice full of a warmth I hadn't realized I was starving for. "I'm so sorry. But you did the right thing. Grandpa Henry would be so proud of you." And for the first time since that horrible Tuesday afternoon, I cried. Clara became my lifeline. She helped me see that the end of one family could be the beginning of another. On her advice, I took a portion of the inheritance, $250,000, and donated it to a Missouri nonprofit that helps victims of financial fraud. I was turning my grandfather's legacy, the very thing they tried to steal, into a shield to protect others. A month after that, I walked into a local animal shelter. In a corner pen, a scruffy terrier mix with wise, sad eyes looked up at me and wagged his tail once. His name was Max. I took him home that day. His presence filled the silence in my house, chasing away the ghosts of the past. I started living again. I joined a pottery class, finding a strange peace in shaping clay with my own hands. I took Max for long walks along the Mississippi River. Occasionally, a letter would arrive from my mother, full of apologies and pleas. I tore them up without reading them. I had lost the family I was born into, but in the wreckage, I found myself. I built a new life, a chosen family of a loving cousin, a loyal dog, and good friends. I had honored my promise to my grandfather. I had protected his legacy. But more importantly, I had learned to protect myself. I proved that my self-respect, my integrity, was not for sale, at any price. It's been 2 years. My mother recently sent a mutual friend to ask if I would be willing to talk. My father and Greg, who is still in prison, have remained silent. A small, buried part of me still feels the pull of the word family, but the logical part of me, the auditor, knows that some numbers can never be reconciled. That some betrayals are unforgivable. Am I wrong to keep that door closed forever? What would you do? Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.